Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our first Pull Up with Limbs and Things of 2024. We are coming together tonight to talk about retirement and movement. And we want to talk about retirement because there are a lot of people who retire and then they just stop moving, especially when you come from working for a long time. You get to retire, you're in early retirement, and you're still trying to stay active. And then when you get to later retirement, you don't become, or you're not as active as you were before. I see people of all different realms of movement, and retirement has a lot to do with how active they are. So tonight we have a special guest, and she's going to share a little bit about her retirement experience. But we want you to engage as well. Pull up with limbs and things is to confirm something you know, to challenge something you don't know, and give you an opportunity to share that information with someone else. Welcome, special guest. How are you?
Fine. How are you?
Good. So, my special guest tonight is Mrs. Angela Bowen. Please introduce yourself.
My name, of course, has already been given, and I am Chanel's mother. And to make a very long history of working short, I'm just going to say that I worked for 39 years, and I worked 29 of those years in a property management firm, 10 years of those years in a community services organization where we provided services to the residents that lived in the apartments of low income housing. And so we actually worked very closely with residents, and we gave them all we could as far as the day-to-day activities and support that they needed to live and live comfortably and take advantage of services that are sometimes very difficult for low-income residents to locate. I retired in 2021, February 2021. And I did this because during the pandemic, a number of the systems that we had put in place became obsolete. And I was definitely not going to start rebuilding them after the pandemic. So I knew that it was time to retire. And Chanel made that also a little bit easier decision because she also decided to have another grandchild for me. And I say for me because I ended up taking care of her. And I was very, very excited about doing that. So it ended up being a great time after 39 years of working and being very, very busy and very, very hectic lifestyle working to come to a point where I could slow it down, but at the same time, not stop. And so I am currently now, after the years of taking care of Claire, starting to get into a new routine, which is a little different. Claire kept me busy, no question about it, but this one's really, really different from the standpoint that I am having to develop different activities that I want to stay involved in that will allow me not only to stay active, but also to be, I would say, doing things that are constructive and meaningful. So I guess that's a little bit about me, and I'm going to turn it back over to Dr. James.
I'm glad you shared all of your history. Yeah, so my special guest tonight is my mother. She's known me, of course, all my life. But I wanted her to come on tonight to talk a little bit about retirement and movement because she has done some things that I think are worth sharing in terms of how she's remained active since her retirement. So let's talk about, you gave us a little bit of information about why you retired, but I know a lot of us, even those who care for people that are older or our parents, what is retirement?
Well, retirement to me has meant that I don't have such a hectic lifestyle. I have definitely gotten away from a 9 to 5 and overtime job, and I have gotten into being more family oriented. I always tried to incorporate the two, but now I am focused into having it to be definitely focused around family as well as doing various activities to stay active.
Good. I think a lot of people tend to think retirement is just the absence of work. I don't have to do anything. I don't have to get up until noon. I don't have to get up until, when I feel like it. And I think those things, some of those characteristics are important to consider when you retire. Did you know I used to say I wanted to retire at 35?
Mhm.
And so now I feel like, of course, that's not a reality, but I've switched gears from what I was doing before. So this kind of feels like a different set of career paths. So it's just interesting because a lot of people tend to think, okay, I'm gonna stop working the 9 to 5 I was doing and just do a part-time job, and that's still considered retirement. What would you say?
No, definitely not. I actually have thought that quitting work or retiring has been just totally different than working altogether. I definitely would not have wanted anybody to set my schedule for me. And that's what a part time job does for you, because you definitely have to be able to give someone some set hours, whether they're flexible or not. And one of the things about retiring for me has been that I can set the agenda any day, anytime. I can sleep late. I can get up and exercise. I can exercise in the evening. I can pick up the grandchildren from school. I can go to a movie anytime during the week. I can take doctor appointments anytime during the week. I can do everything based on no particular schedule. And that is a freedom that is definitely felt only in retirement and not having to work at all.
Gotcha. Okay, so what was your regimen of movement before you retired?
Definitely very, very busy. I spent a number of hours behind the desk, but more so at the community centers that we actually provided services to the residents in. And that was done basically, I would say, anywhere from 4 to even sometimes the entire week of actually splitting my day between being in the office and then being at a community center, or actually working with the residents at the community centers, and even overseeing the staff at the community centers. So it was a very hectic type of activity. It was physical activity all the time, walking a lot, actually being able to.
Get in and out of a car?
Oh, absolutely. Driving different places, definitely trying to make sure I would make meetings all over the place and then walking to them, locating where they were, but always even going to like new places. And I remember having to do the scope out of community centers that we were just initially getting ready to provide services at, and really having to go through and walk through the buildings and really see specifically where that community center was going to be placed. So there was a great deal of walking, a great deal of activity. And then in the evenings, it would be okay, let me sit down at my desk and do the work that's been sitting and waiting for me all day. So it was definitely a high energy job, high activity job, and not really staying behind the desk all the time. So I was physically moving all the time for at least 12 hours a day.
Gotcha. Okay, so how have you continued that post 2021 when you retired?
Well, first of all, of course, I said I started babysitting. And as the pandemic actually converted from being into a year or so, I spent a lot of time with my granddaughter doing wall dances, doing all kinds of exercises in the house, and actually taking her out for walks or actually going to the mall and things of that nature. And that kept me able to exercise as well as to enjoy the time with her and do things she wanted to do, whether it was going to the playground or actually being able to play with her. It was definitely constant activity. And so I think I kind of slowed down when she started school. I did start thinking, I can sleep a little later. I don't have to be up at 8:30 when she's going to be here. And I definitely started thinking in terms of enjoying sleeping late. I have this thing that you can actually go to sleep and you are waking up in the morning, and then you think, oh, I can go back for that second sleep and then get up. And so I've been enjoying that and really trying to make sure that I am now trying to formulate a schedule that will allow me to do the 8 hours, get up in the morning, and get active. So yes, it's definitely now molding into a different schedule, but it definitely is something that I have tried to incorporate. Really, those I would say wonderful things that you can do in retirement.
Lovely. Okay, what would you consider a young retiree to be, age wise?
I would probably say about 55, even 60. I was 61 when I retired, but definitely felt like that was a little late. My initial goal had been to retire when I was in my 50s, and that wasn't possible at the time, but I had definitely wanted to do that. I think it all worked out. Not disappointed that I didn't do that, but for sure, I would say an early retiree is in their 50s as opposed to in their 60s.
Got it. Okay. Does retiring early? Because I consider you an early retiree. Does that change your outlook on life?
I think I think for sure it definitely is a time of when you have thought, well, life really went past fast. Because of course when you're working, you're thinking, I'm doing all this work, am I gonna ever be able to retire? And especially being in private industry where you didn't necessarily have like a pension, and knowing that you were gonna still get funds when in fact you did retire, you thought that retirement was something that was far off and that you may not be able to attain. Now, having left and been able to see how being retired is, and trying to manage finances and just think in terms of what I want to do when in fact I actually am retired and vacationing, it's definitely a different thought process that goes on, and you're looking at life differently because it seems like everything is like five, six speed as opposed to first and second speed. And I'm now using the analogy of a stick shift. You
Mm.
are definitely at a point where you're looking at things very differently. It just seems like life has definitely sped by, and you are trying to, in my particular case anyway, fulfill the purpose that God has set for me in my life. And so my goal is to try to incorporate all of those things while I am enjoying the fact that I have this freedom of my schedule and planning it in any way that I deem fit on any given day.
Yeah. I think it's interesting. I've seen a lot of early retirees that tend to work with people who, some are still working and they're in their 70s, and some want to retire but don't find it feasible to do it, especially those who are entrepreneurs. And then there are people who have retired early and they find that, oh, I find that they're the ones that are the most active. And then the late retirees, or the ones who've been retired for a long time, they're so used to their new or their retired lifestyle that now that has become a job to them, where they have
Yeah.
a set zone. We only get up at this hour, we go to sleep at this hour. So the person who has the young retiree mindset, what would you say they are doing to stay active, or what ways have you been staying active as an
I would
actor?
say my goal is to walk as much as I possibly can. I know initially I started off doing exercises at home because I didn't want to have to worry about that being a restriction. If I didn't go out, I could still take in the exercises. One of the things that I think has been very interesting to learn as I've gotten older is it used to be about repetitions and the length of time that was spent exercising. And now I see that the exercising that is best for us as we get older is just to keep walking and keep moving, but you don't have to do as many repetitions, and you don't have to do and can't sometimes move like you need to, or move like an aerobics class would ask you to. So it's wonderful that you can get a benefit from moving and just doing neck turns and lifting arms and legs, and not doing so many repetitions of that, and still stay active and still stay to the point where you're not having as many aches and pains as you normally would if in fact you were doing so many repetitions or trying to keep up with the way you used to exercise. So
Right.
now that's been a different thought process for me. I'm also listening to those who have retired and have been long retired that tell me that some of the things I thought I was going to do, one of which is riding a bike, and riding an electric bike at that might not be such a good idea, because one of the things we don't realize is that as we are less active, and when I say less active, I mean, you're not having a daily schedule of constant movement, you find that you are not as comfortable, I would say, riding a bike where you're really in peak shape. And so it's been a wise decision for me to rethink that and possibly not get an electric bike, maybe get a stationary bike. So we are definitely, reevaluating in my mind's eye specifically for sure what is the best type of exercise for this time of life.
Absolutely. I remember you used to go to Pilates class, you would go to Zumba class with me. And do you think you would still be interested in doing those things as a retiree? Or do you
No,
find that you put those in the category of the electric bike?
they are in the category of the electric bike. Yes, definitely. If you will recall, when we were
Mm.
going to some of those Pilates classes, I would say to you, "Oh, I don't think I'm going to do that." I'm going to modify that particular movement and do this. And
Mhm.
so that to me was a point in time that my body was even saying, then you're not going to be able to do all of the things that they're asking you to do in this class. You're going to have to modify and make it so that you can actually get the exercise in and not hurt yourself. And
Yeah,
so that definitely is something that, no, it's in the category of the exercise bike. I am locating and trying to find the best routine of exercises for myself now. But there's definitely modification that's going into that thought process because I don't want to hurt myself while at the same time getting the maximum benefit from exercising.
absolutely. And that's a good point because I think a lot of us, as we get older, we've been doing things. Now, if that has been your regimen and you've never stopped, you haven't had to make a modification, then continue by all means. But those of us who are what we tend to call in PT like the weekend warriors, those people who played ball when they were younger and then they go out in their 50s or 60s, maybe even their 70s and try to have a pickup game, then they find that they pull some muscle or something like that. And that just means that you got to have the balance between those ages so that you are continuing to keep yourself limber and able to do the things you were able to do before. But modifications
Absolutely.
are fine. I think it's really imperative that people know modifications can be done, or you can just do something new and different, especially to stay limber, but also to stay as active as possible because if you don't move, pain will set in when you do move. Because
Absolutely.
this is real.
Absolutely. And that is what I have definitely learned. And I want to make sure that I can minimize as much pain as I can. And I'm saying no to optional pain.
You've
It's
been
obvious
saying
at this point.
optional, but
At this point in life, I am definitely not doing anything that is painful, that is optional. And so if I can see it coming, I am certainly trying to say no.
gotcha. Okay, so now that you've been retired, what is this, 3 years now? For multiple years, it will be 3 years in February, right? Do you
Hmm.
find it more important to establish your routine of movement like into your day, and then why or why not?
Yes, definitely. I want to have exercise daily in my day, but I also want to do it when I say daily, Monday through Friday. I want to give it a break on some days of the week. I don't want to feel badly because I'm not doing something every seventh day or every 7 days. I can say I am definitely for 7 days a week exercising. I definitely want to give it a break. And I don't think I want to do it like every other day. I'm really trying to figure that out because I think it's best for me, and everybody's got to figure out what works for them. But I think it's best for me to do it consistently Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, or add the Friday in there and then take a break
Hmm.
because I don't want to have to worry about, oh, I'm doing it every other day or I'm doing it, 2 days, every 2 days or whatever that may mean. I want to really get into a regiment that's easy to follow because it's consistent. But at the same time, I don't want it to be something that I can't modify as well and feel good about the fact that, okay, I didn't do it today, but I'll pick it up, the next 3 days. But definitely, I think it's important. I feel the difference when I don't exercise.
Yes, you
And I
will.
definitely don't want that to be the case for as much as possible that I can eliminate any pain. I want to be able to do that.
Good, good. Okay, so do you have any advice for someone that's contemplating retirement, but they want to make sure that they don't fall into a sedentary lifestyle?
Yes, definitely. I feel that it's important to figure out what it is you really want to do. And when I say figure out what you really want to do, be able or be comfortable with the fact that you just might not want to do anything in particular. And you're comfortable with that. And when I say anything, I mean not a schedule or not a routine. It's really very true. I had a friend tell me once you retire, people are going to give you a number of things to do. And that happens. There's no question about it. Things that you would never necessarily get asked to do, you get asked to do when they know you're retired because they're thinking you have the
You're
time to do.
available, right?
Yeah, and so you have to be careful about that, but at the same time, you do want to be able to set up some sort of activities that are going to be meaningful and are going to allow you to stay active. It's really, really important not to just think that, okay, I don't have to do anything. I'm just going to sit in front of this television. It's very tempting. There are a number of shows out there. Binging on Netflix is just wonderful too, to have a day of that. But to not make it a habit. And so I would say for sure, it's just very important that you stay active doing something, whether it's going out with friends or walking and doing your exercise or spending your time with your grandchildren, or however you want to lay it out. You want to put it all together so that you can have a variety of activities that you're doing every day and that you're looking forward to it, and not necessarily just letting the day completely unfold as it may. You do set, certain dates so that you can, in fact, get out there and do something, so that you are not just completely to the point where you're just sitting still and you're not moving.
Absolutely. Okay, so you talked about all the ways that you are doing movement. So you're walking in the mall, you're making sure that you do your exercises at home if you don't leave. But what do you think you're going to do this year? Are you going to maintain those things? Are you going to implement anything new? What can we look forward to with your movement routine?
Well, I know that I'm really excited about the fact that we have a new pastor at our church, and I am looking into ways that I will possibly be able to help out in that area, things that may be needed at the church, doing outreach now that I'm available to actually be able to do that. And we're a little bit beyond the pandemic. I'm very interested in helping our membership to grow and bringing in young people into our church. And so there are a number of ideas that I'd really like to be able to help implement and get the youth and the children and even the young adults back into our church. So that will be added into the things that I'm already doing, and actually being more consistent with the exercising, because even though I do it, I don't do it with enough consistency, in my opinion. So my goal will be to increase and make sure that I am steady about doing a consistent amount of activity during the course of the week.
Well, I think that's great. But I also want you to know I think you're doing a good job in terms of staying as active as you are. So keep
Well,
up the
thank you
good.
so much.
Mhm.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. So I think these tips that you provided have been helpful. That when you retire, you do want to have like a sort of a plan to know how you're going to stay active. If you've been active before, sounds like you probably should continue. If you want to pick up a new hobby or a new task to do, maybe invite somebody else to do it with you so that you have the camaraderie. It always helps when someone else is your accountability partner so that you're not just out here doing things alone, but then you also have the support of someone who will tell you, okay, we got to go today, even though we don't feel like going.
Right, right, exactly. It's been a great time for me too to catch up with a number of my friends, those who are still working as well as those who are not, and to
Yeah.
do a lot of activities like bowling and even going to women's retreats, and a number of things that I probably would have not been able to do or would have had to say it no to. I have been able to say yes, and I have just been very, very excited about reconnecting with a number of friends that I could not, spend that kind of time with when I was working. So a whole new world has awakened, and I am looking forward to it, and the things that the connection or reconnection with those friends is bringing to the table as well, because they are very creative and they definitely have ideas of things that they are doing that I definitely want to get on my table of activities.
Yeah. So it's so important that you stay active so you can travel, so you can enjoy your retirement years and you aren't just sitting and wasting your time. You want to make sure, or wasting away your muscles either. Because the
Right.
more you move, the better you'll be, the more in toned you'll be in your body, and the strength of your body will be well for you to get up and down, to walk around. All of those things that we seem to take for granted when we are working become cumbersome in retirement if you don't move. So, I want to
Absolutely.
thank you so much for joining and sharing all
You're
of your.
welcome.
If you have a
All right.
final
Thank
thought
you.
for us, let me know.
No, basically just that I think it's just very important to stay active. I think it's very important not to beat yourself up when you're not as active as you think the bar should be held, and that you do get out there and learn all of the different things that are out there for you to enjoy at this time of life, where you don't have to worry about being in a specific time at a specific place with a specific person. You can just relax and just let things flow as they just happen, and basically just to really enjoy the freedom that retirement offers.
Very good advice. Okay, so if you have a question or a comment, you can always put that in the chat and we will answer them. And as always, pull up with Limbs and Things is to confirm something you know, to challenge something you don't know, and give you the opportunity to share this information with someone else. So if you've retired and you have some ideas on how to stay active, you can put that in the comments too. If you're watching us live, hashtag live, and if you are catching this on the replay, hashtag replay. Mon, thank you so much for joining. Everyone, have a wonderful evening.
You're welcome. Take care.